In the 19th century, Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch, making use of the technological developments of their time, made microbes visible for the first time to the human eye. Visualizing these tiny companions led to a determinant shift in our perception of health and disease. As pathogens were found to be the direct cause of certain diseases, we realized that by changing the environment where these microbes lived, we could influence our health. This is precisely where design, in a complex and multiple way, comes in. In the colonies overseas and in hand with the hygienist movement sweeping throughout Europe, the design of spaces came to be considered a form of preventive medicine. Domestic spaces in particular became the battlefield where the war against microbes was waged, as the 1884 London Health Exhibition shows. In this short presentation, we want to trace the relations between hygiene, microbes, and domestic design through the concept of sterilization. By sterilization, we mean not only the physical act itself, but the set of practices and the collective imaginaries that feed on it. We believe that looking through the lens of sterilization is urgent and important, as it implies a shift from a one-sided anthropocentric concern with human health to a postnatural perspective which brings the relationships between species to the fore. We propose looking to contemporary philosophers and scientists, women such as Donna Haraway, Anat Singh, and Lynn Margulis, who can help us to stop perceiving microorganisms as a threat and instead see them as our allies for new interdisciplinary practices of co-designing. We believe this is now more important than ever, as today we are forced to recognize the ways in which we live entangled with other species. Only by understanding these entanglements, making them the basis of design practices, will we be able to move beyond obsolete temporary patches to real solutions for an interspecies future. Between the years of 1860 and 1864, Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch were able to demonstrate the causal relation between germs and disease. To do this, they relied on the sterilized environment par excellence, the laboratory. At that time, disease control became crucial to make the European colonial enterprise profitable, turning the colony's territory into a life-size laboratory that Pasteur and his colleagues could use. As Latour states, malaria or yellow fever were to be destroyed not with vaccines, but by ordering the colonists and natives to build their houses differently. In this way, sterilization became a biopolitical project for designing systems of spatial and social control, which was inextricably linked to the economical and political interest of colonial powers. At the same time, in Europe, sterilization became central to spatial design, fostered by the hygienist movement. This growing concern around hygienic spaces responded as much to scientific research as it did to vague concepts like contagion, miasma, or dirt, and discourses around race, gender, and sexuality which were present in society. The London Health Exhibition of 1884, among whose attendees was Pasteur himself, was the pinnacle of this discourse, gathering in one place the multiplicity of devices and practices that emerged around the concept of sterilization. Designs for the home had a prevalent place in the exhibition, which became a kind of hygienist IKEA of the 19th century, where middle-class families walked around the aisles looking for gadgets to ensure the cleanliness and purity of their households. Furniture was lifted from the ground, ornaments faded, and fairy masks were turned into sleek and smooth surfaces. Today, the biopolitical project of sterilization has become so widespread and refined that we have become blind not only to the presence of our microbial companions, but also to the strategies that have permitted and continue to allow their invisibilization. The Victorian obsession with pristine homes has been perfected, taking design and architecture strategies to the point of creating quasi-medical buildings. Think, for example, of the plastic gaskets or the rubber which we invariably use for sealing pipes and windows in our houses, a material which incidentally was used in Pasteur's time for the design of surgical gloves. Responding to the omnipresent, invisible threat of undesirable microorganisms, rubber has also abandoned the operating room evolving into invisible and omnipresent joints that seal our houses, giving us the false impression that we can live and act separately from other organisms. Rather, as many others, becomes a facilitator of the biopolitical project of sterilization. We have entered what Richard Sennett calls the politics of indifference, in which microbes remain outside our daily concerns and consequently outside the interests of design. However, we believe that the current situation is forcing us to reassess the ways in which microorganisms and design have interacted. Since the times of Pasteur, microbes have been considered within architecture and design only as pathogens, and the forms, materials and technologies have been developed in order to eliminate anything microbial through non-selective methods. The narrative of sterilization classifies bodies and spaces in a series of dichotomies, such as inside, outside, pure, contaminated, wild, domesticated, which become both ontological and physical borders. These borders allow inside only those living organisms that we consider companion species, such as our pets, dogs, cats, fishes, and the like, certain species of plants, and of course other humans. Paraphrasing Annette Singh, architectural spaces, and in particular the home, put a cordon sanitaire which impedes inter- and interspecies love. Today, and in order to face the current crisis, we must overcome this unloving, binary heritage of design. And to do this, we propose looking at microbes through a different microscope. Lynn Margulis' research into the symbiotic origins of the eukaryotic cell was fundamental in changing our understanding of microbes. Margulis, who is particularly fond of bacteria, depicts a world where microorganisms are no longer dangerous, minuscule enemies, but are fundamental symbionts. She claims that most bacteria have far more important things to do on this earth than to devour our tissues while we're still alive, drink our blood when we are old and weak, or fight with us over who will eat our food first. According to her, it is the notorious self-centeredness of our species that leads to the manic claim that all bacteria are kilogems to be eradicated from our lives. So it turns out that even our seemingly hermetic homes are seething with microbial life, and what's more, so are our bodies. The simplified and biased perception of microbes as nemesis that we inherited from the 19th century no longer holds, and the very subject of design is now not a self-contained individual, but a walking assemblage of different kinds of organisms. Design should profit from these new scientific insights and incorporate microbes as valuable allies who, since they are neither inside nor outside, function as a continuum between organisms and the environment. In fact, design is already doing so, as cavities which were previously sealed and filled with rubber are now left open for microorganisms to proliferate. In the words of Donna Haraway, it is in the tunnels, caves, remnants, edges, and crevices where the symbiogenetic and symbiotic earthly ones make the living. Consciously interacting with microbes in the process of design must also mean coming to terms with the unpredictable, so that research into new forms and materials must not consist so much in final human configurations, but rather in unexpected collaborations between forms of life. Designing in symbiotic times can also mean looking at mycelium growing over strips of wood, or algae proliferating inside foam structures. Bioreceptive architecture and materials, probiotic design, research into the use of biomaterials including mycelium, bioluminescent bacteria or photosynthetic garments, or the profiling of the home microbiome are all examples of these new aesthetics, moving away from purity and cleanliness to more three-dimensional, complex, and colorful patterning. Just as Margaret McFadden says that human bodies can no longer be seen as fortresses to defend against microbial onslaught, but must be re-envisioned as nested ecosystems, so neither buildings can continue to be constructed as impenetrable strongholds. The unpredictable, the unstable, and the permeable which characterize symbiotic forms of microbial living should stop being suppressed in design to become opportunities for moving beyond anthropocentric conceptions of inert spaces. As Donna Haraway puts it, truly nothing is sterile, and that reality is a terrific danger, basic fact of life, and creature-making opportunity. The challenge that humans are facing today is not altogether that different from the one experienced at the time of Pasteur, and there is a risk that design will respond with the same solutions. An alternative landscape of initiatives is growing, which seems to have realized that contemporary spaces have to become ecosystems that host life rather than sterilized borders. These new strategies also have to contribute to the redefinition of domestic spaces, which now have gained such a new relevance. We believe design can be a privileged space to experiment these encounters between species and to bring a different awareness about the ways in which we live entangled with each other. Now that everyone's attention has been turned to the microscale, we'd like to invite designers to keep looking at our microscopic companions as a way of dissolving established borders in design and speculating and imagining all the possible futures.